So last week we discussed about leaving cholent on the platter before Shabbat, right?
Right.
So maybe a question which is connected more or less to the topic, not exactly, but it is a bit connected. A question I got this week on WhatsApp. Let's see what you think about, and then we'll go to our topic. It's just an interesting question. So the guy on WhatsApp, a woman, a guy, I don't remember, who it was asked, it was in a group of asked the rabbi. So
Yes. The rabbi.
I most of the people who ask, I don't even know who they are. I'm not even sure where they live. So they asked, is the decree, the gzera of eating chamin, hot food on Shabbat, can you fulfill it also on taking out something from the fridge and putting it on the blech, on the hot plate? Or does it have to be something that you kept warm from Friday until Shabbat? So that was the question.
It's an interesting question because in America, they told us, because there were several house fires, not to leave your plata on all Shabbat and to put it on the Shabbat clock. On Shabbat,
to prevent house fires.
Because houses were being burnt down.
And when they're from wood, that's very dangerous. So what do you think? So can we fulfill it by taking out something from the fridge and putting it on the hot plate, or does it have to be something like chulent?
It's fully cooked.
If it's cooked. No, but the decree of eating warm food on Shabbat. So it has to be something that you have on the hot plate since Shabbat.
Decree, I guess, doesn't make much sense.
From where?
Okay.
Decree from where?
What do you mean decree from where?
Who decreed this?
So who decreed this? That's the first question. Who decreed this? Is there such a decree? There's no such a decree. Okay, so there's no such a decree. It's a minhag. The Rishonim write, מי שלא אוכל חמין בשבת, I don't remember the exact term, הרי זה מין. Now, before I translate it, you can more or less guess the Hebrew. מי שלא, anyone who doesn't eat chamin on Shabbat, he might be a min. What's the min? Someone who...
But the reason they did that was to separate us from the
Karaites, right? The Karaites, exactly. So first, what's the question of chamin? And here comes another halachic question, which I saw on the internet. A woman asks the rabbi, that didn't ask me, but the woman asks the rabbi, I don't like cholent, but my husband forces me to eat cholent on Shabbat because we have that decree. מי שלא אוכל חמין בשבת, הרי הוא מין. Someone who doesn't eat chamin on Shabbat, he might be a min. So
there's so many different cholent recipes. If you don't like beans, you can do potatoes. Yeah. If you don't like potatoes, you can do barley. I mean, I think this woman needs to be a little
to find it. So chamin has a chamin. It has a bean inside. It has a. So first, a translation problem here, and that's why I didn't translate the word chamin, because in Hebrew, or especially if you go to Sephardi society, chamin means cholent. But chamin in the Gemara time doesn't mean cholent, it means hot food, exactly. Hot food. So we need to eat something hot food. So if the woman doesn't like to eat cholent on Shabbat, she can eat. Have a hot kugel. Have something else. Okay, have a warm schnitzel, whatever. No, but when the Rishonim say chamin, they mean hot food. And there's two reasons for that. One reason is enjoy Shabbat, honoring Shabbat. You can't just have cold cuts every Shabbat.
Yeah, but if this woman doesn't enjoy it, then that's not honoring.
Exactly.
Shabbat.
So if she doesn't enjoy chamin, so she should have something else warm. Whatever warm food you like, eat warm. That's one reason for it. It's honoring Shabbat. Another reason, and I think Danny said, I'm not sure who said it. Oh, separating us from the Karaites. Like who said it? No, Danny. Okay, Danny said it. Yeah, separating us from the Karaites. The Karaites believed that you can't have any warm food on Shabbat, at least not Shabbat day. So they used to have cold food, but to separate us from the Karaites, we had to have hot food. It's not a decree, it's just that's how a kosher Jew does. He enjoys Shabbat, and not like the Karaites who think Shabbat is a day which isn't part of, we can't enjoy Shabbat. So there's no such a decree. Okay, and if someone wants to have a warm soup, a lentil soup, which is on the platter on Shabbat, that's fine.
I mean, today, there's always a crock pot. And
A
there's
crock
so
pot,
many things
exactly.
that you can put in a crock pot.
Yeah,
You can have, you know. like
whatever,
soup or
whatever.
stew
Yeah,
or-
Carrot Tzdukim?
karaim, it's close to the tzdukim. It's like, I think the difference is mainly probably a few differences in the ideology, but also different streams, the politic difference between them. Carrots still exist today. Karaim, karaim.
They're not the Shomer.
No, not the Shomernim.
Ah.
Carrots still exist today. I think they live in Ramle. There's some in Egypt. They still exist today. Yeah, so they still exist. So Tokim don't exist so much.
There's, we were on a tour in the Shomron.
So that's a Shomonim in
Oh,
Bracha.
those are the
In Bracha,
Shomernim.
that's a Shomonim.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so how are the Karaites different from the? I know it's
Yeah.
Barfield.
And that, I don't know how they're different than Shomonim.
Are the Karaites different from the Shomernim? I asked, but it's not for this.
So Shem,
Sorry.
Okay, so now, so that brings us now to the topic of today's class. I have schnitzels in the fridge. Shabbos day, I want to make sure I have warm food. Can I take the schnitzels and put it on the hot plate?
Oh, it's not liquid.
No liquid. When we'll get, is there a difference between a hot plate, the electric hot plates that we use? Is there maybe some people, I've seen a friend of mine in the States, he used natural gas and he put on it a plate of metal. Is there a difference between the electric hot plate and the plate of metal? Can I put it inside? They say the oven is kept on a low heat. Can I put it inside the oven?
The oven is an issue because you change the temperature when you open the door. And you
Shabbos
could,
mode.
Let's say it has Shabbos mode, it takes a time, let's say
I don't,
to...
you know, Shabbos mode on your refrigerator isn't really,
I'm actually doing now a class.
Shabbos mode in the oven rather, in the States.
In the oven.
It's not a Shabbos mode, it's a Yom Tov mode. It really, they call it a Shabbos mode,
Okay.
but
So let's say it doesn't, when you open the oven, it does not change the temperature, at least not right away. It takes 2 minutes. And by
right,
then,
that's what they do. They put on a time delay.
yeah, so that can be fine. On Shabbat,
Dafka.
after Shachrit, we are just now learning that topic. So can I put it on the?
There's another question is, was it warm before Shabbat?
No, I'm taking it from the fridge.
No, but did you warm it before Shabbat and then put it in the fridge?
Cooked schnitzel. It was warm before Shabbat. Yeah, it must be
I
warm
think
before
you
Shabbat.
can do it.
So you think you could do it?
Oh, I've never eaten your house.
For all the reasons that you're saying, you're having come in and you're having not like the kavri.
So is there a difference between a hot plate and a metal plate you put on the gas? So we'll see soon. There is a difference. We'll see soon there's a difference between them. Another question. I have hot soup. Yeah, I have hot soup. Since we are men, so I'm sure this mistake happened to us a few times. Our wife tells us, bring the soup to the table. And by mistake, we took to put part of the cholent, if we don't have crock pots, brought it to the table and said, oh no, this isn't the rice pot. Can we return it back? Let's assume that it's fully cooked. Okay, it's fully cooked. Just what? You say let it go or not. Why do you say let it go, not let it go? It's off. So that's exactly the halacha we're going to learn. Okay, so great. So you can teach us. Sit down here, have the microphone, and so before just to understand that, we mentioned already last week that Chazal did have a decree about dealing with food. That is, no, food is something important. We like food. We like food. We like our food to be nice and tasty and warm. We like our food. If people will start warming up the food, it might very easily change the temperature of fire, add a few pieces of wood to the fire. The Chazal were very stringent about it. Another thing which Chazal is stringent about is making sure it doesn't look like as if you're cooking on Shabbat. Okay? So it doesn't look like as if you're cooking on Shabbat. Maybe a very easy way to understand it, and I think gives quite a bit of inspiration, is that everyone is obligated to keep Shabbat. Let's give an example, a different example. Bringing korbanot. Who brings korbanot? The Kohanim. Who deals with the Kohanim? Who deals with the korban? The Kohanim, right? Who answers question about Hashavat Aveda? The rabbi, right? Who's obligated in keeping Shabbat and needs to know the laws of Shabbat? Everybody. Now, in the everybody, we include also people who don't know how to read, who maybe know how to read but never went to a serious school. So what they know about Shabbat is what they do at their house. At our house, we do like this. Yesterday, I had an argument with someone about brachot. And it took me about, I think, 20 minutes to prove him the bracha on something, and we had to go into the freezer in the base to open the freezer, check the ingredients, check online exactly the quantities, and only then he agreed with the bracha. And his point was, in our house, that is what we do. That's what we do in our house, right? So as soon as there's a mistake somewhere there in the history, that mistake can keep on for ages. A neighbor of mine told me that I think in the village where his grandparents came from, they had the interesting custom, not sure where it came from. On Yom Kippur night, you come back from shul, have 1 glass of water, and continue your fast. I'm not sure where it came from. I'm not sure if it was maybe they used to daven once a bit earlier, mincha, and then they came home and drank. I'm not sure where it came from. But that was the custom. Now, we say, obviously, that's not halakha, right? But as soon as there's a mistake, people might stick to that mistake and do things which aren't permitted on Shabbat. So Chazal were very stringent about what will people think when they see you. When they see you putting fully cooked food on a flame, and they don't know it's fully cooked food.
On the flame or on the covered flame?
On a flame. What might they think?
That you can cook on
That you can cook on Shabbat. Exactly. So Chazal said, no, don't put any food, even if it is cooked food, in a place where that's the derech bishul bekach, or that's the way of cooking. Okay, so that's the Chazal very stringent about it. Let's give examples of things which are the regular way of cooking. A crock pot, for example, a gas stove, even a covered gas stove. What's not the way of cooking?
That's a reason to put on a plata, to put
The net,
a hot
exactly.
sheet,
That's exactly.
a cooking sheet, turn it over, and so that your food is not directly on the plata, but it's on some other.
Yeah. So we'll get to it. Hopefully, we'll get to it soon. But exactly the reason why you see many people cover the hot plate with a cooking pan, a net, something else, is to separate between the food and the heat. 2 reasons for that. One of the reasons is to show everyone sees that's not the way of cooking. I'm not cooking on Shabbat. I'm warming up something which is probably already warm. Okay, so that's the reason. One of the reasons for that. More examples. We have a radiator. Have you ever cooked on a radiator? No, hopefully not. Right?
Actually,
I tried once, and
in the States we had radiators, and we were told that if we put something on the radiator, we could put our food on top of it.
Right? Exactly. Why? Because that's not how you cook. You never cook on a radiator. That's why on Shabbat you can put your food on a radiator. But let's go to it in a more organized way. Okay, so let's start from Friday. We're talking about on Friday. First, whoever has a book, it's in Reish Nun Gimel 253, chapter paragraph 2, Seif Bet. Okay, so that's where we are. We learned already last time that you can only deal cooking on Shabbat, or not cooking, warming up on Shabbat with fire which is covered. Why does the fire need to be covered? The flame needs to be covered. You won't come and play with the flame on Shabbat. Okay, even when it's covered. Okay. So first, let's read the Shulchan Aruch and then the Ramah. When you have a covered flame, for example, a hot plate, you have a hot plate, or the gas stove which has a blech on it. Okay. And you on Shabbat you took the pot off, you can return the pot to the blech. Okay, as long as it is boiling. Very soon we'll explain why boiling. And it's still in your hand. Okay, it's still in your hand. Why does it need to be hot or boiling? That might be our next topic. We learned Kiddush already, and we learned I think we learned in the past Kiddush and also Hamotzi on bread, right? I think we learned it. I'll check. So I think our next topic will be cooking on Shabbat. Hot tea on Shabbat. It's winter now. Can we make hot tea? Can't we make hot tea? According to the Shulchan Aruch, if I have water which was boiling, I took it off the blech, it cooled down a tiny bit, I'm not allowed to return it to the blech. The Rama is a bit more lenient. We'll get to it, Bezat Hashem. But in order to warm up water, I cannot warm up water. According to Shulchan Aruch, if it's cooled down a bit, I can't return it to the hot plate on Shabbat. That's a Shulchan Aruch. Okay?
That's like your soup.
Water, soup, any liquid.
Soup? Would the soup still be boiling? We don't.
Let's say the soup was boiling. It's hot. Okay, I took it off the blech. I went out. Now it's freezing outside. It's snowing. It's not snowing outside, but it is windy. It's cold, and the wind stood out there for 10 minutes. I bring it back. I'm sure the soup is much cooler now, right? And then my wife told me, "What are you doing? That should be on the hot plate. How did you get mixed up between the cholent again and the soup, right?"
I don't think you're trying to get out of kitchen duty.
Right. I have a friend that once his wife had twins, and when she was pregnant, she had twins. So she had to stay in bed for a long time. And during that time, he always had halachic questions about, I took by mistake the meat container and put inside into the milk. What do I do now? Somebody I told him, you know what? You need your wife to come back to the kitchen. It will create less questions. Baruch Hashem now, the twins, I think, close to Bar Mitzvah, I think already. I think he knows his kitchen better by now. But anyway, so says the Shulchan Aruch, you can return it only if it's still hot and it is still, and you didn't place it on the ground. Okay, as soon as you place it on the ground, then it's already now as if you're doing something new on Shabbat, and that's something new on Shabbat. Shabbat Chazal said it's forbidden. The Rama brings the more stringent opinion, and then he'll bring also a more lenient opinion. And we typically will follow the more stringent opinion unless there's a big need, and then we can follow the more lenient opinion. No, if there's a big need, let's say, I will maybe give an example. If there's it's now you have guests, and that's the food you have, and it's freezing outside. So when there's a big need, you can go according to that. So let's go first to the more common opinion. In order to return something to the platter on Shabbat, and you said it, you need to have 3 conditions. Okay, if I took it off on Shabbat, it's liquid, and now I want to return it back to the platter on Shabbat. Okay, it needs to have 3 conditions. One of you, I think, mentioned them. The fire needs to be covered. Okay, the fire needs to be covered. It needs to be still in your hand. It needs to be still in your hand. And your intention is to return it to the fire. Okay, it needs to be in your hand, and you still have intention to return it to the fire, to the hot plates. Okay, that's the 3 conditions you need.
Even if it got cold.
No, if it got cold, so you have a problem. We can't return it. We can't return it.
Everything gets cold when you take it in.
So according to the Rama, it needs to stay warm. Okay, still it doesn't have to stay at the same exact temperature. Okay, it needs to still stay warm. I'll give you, for example, a very common example where you use it. I remember as a kid, so some of my siblings were very picky. So they would eat only specific food. And they wanted from the food of tomorrow, from the children of tomorrow, they wanted to eat a potato from there. And it was already fully cooked. Everything was cooked. There was no problem with that. In the army, it happens sometimes. You have soldiers who are on guard, and you want the food to stay. You have chicken soup, you want it to stay warm. You take off the chicken soup from the blech, you take some chicken soup, put it in a bowl, and then put the chicken soup back on the blech. Okay, so that's a very common example. Says the Rama, all of that stringency about returning back to the plata, to the hot plate on Shabbat, it's only if you took it off. That's the lenient opinion. Okay, now we're going to the lenient opinion. Only if you took it off before Shabbat. But if you took it off on Shabbat itself, so you can return it even if you put it on the floor already, on the ground, you can return it. So
This
the
is liquid you're talking
liquid,
about.
talking about liquid,
We
yeah.
get the schnitzel question, which you could take off. and
Actually,
put it
we'll
back
get to
on
it
and
in a moment. We'll get to it in a moment. Yeah, we have time to get to the schnitzel question. So the Rama here really brings two different opinions. One of them is more stringent than the Shulchan Aruch. One of them is more lenient. The more lenient is if you took it off on Shabbat, there's no problem. Even if you let the pot go, you put it on the floor, as long as it's cooked and still a bit warm, you can return it back to the plata on Shabbat. That's the second opinion of the Rama. If there's a big need, we can follow this opinion. The opinion which we usually follow is that in order to return something, we need to have three conditions. One is that you didn't put it on the floor. Two, you still have in mind to return it on Shabbat. And three, you're still holding this. Your hand is always on the pot. Okay, so if you put it on the shaish, on the counter, and you're still holding it, one hand you're holding it, one hand you're opening it, and that's fine. Okay, so that's about liquid things bringing back to the plata. What happens, and that's can sometimes also be a common question. Do we have a lot of power problems here? Yes, okay. So I have my hot food on the plata, and then on Shabbat, the switch jumped, and now my plata is off, turned off. Okay, the plata is turned off now. Can I move it to my neighbor's plata? He has nice big plata, and he has space for me. Can I move my food to the? He didn't lose his power. Can we move the food from there to there? So just to summarize the first question, and then we'll get to this question. The whole problem of putting something new on the plata on Shabbat, like a new action of putting on the plata on Shabbat, is because someone from outside, what does he think? What am I doing? I'm cooking on Shabbat, I'm warming on Shabbat, I'm doing something which is forbidden. And then he'll say, we can warm up soup on Shabbat, right? But if he sees me moving from one hot plate to another hot plate, what does he know? Well, it's strange. It's not the typical thing. That's not, obviously, he's just, both of them are warm, both of them are fine, and he's not cooking on Shabbat. He won't learn that you can cook on Shabbat.
Maintain those same three conditions, even if you're moving it to the sink, you're not putting it down.
Now, let's say I went to shul and I come and I know 10 minutes beforehand the hot plate, the power jumped, so I wasn't holding it when there was no power. Okay, the power jumped. It's not, yeah. But if someone who looks at it, what does he see? I'm moving it from a hot plate to another hot plate. Okay, so you can move food from one hot plate to another hot plate on Shabbat. Okay, or you can move food from a warmer spot to a less warm spot and so on Shabbat, because everyone sees, okay, it doesn't look like cooking on Shabbat. Okay, so that's, and that in the winter can be sometimes quite a common question about, sometimes we set the Shaon Shabbat and we forgot that they moved, changed the times, and that's when our hot Shabbat. Okay, so we can move it to someone else's on Shabbat. Also, you can raise the food. Let's say if the hot plate is too hot and you see your children is drying up, you can raise it, put something underneath it, and put it back. Okay, there's no problem with that, because people who look at it, what do they say? It's not cooking on Shabbat. Okay, that's. What about? Okay. What about returning into the oven? And that's when we moved to the States, so we had this big oven, and one of our neighbors told us, yeah, we have an oven like you have. It has the Shabbat setting. You can put your food in the oven on Shabbat. Can you do it or no? Based on what we learned now, can I put? It's cooked. It's cooked already.
It looked like you're cooking.
Exactly. It looks like you're cooking. We never did it. We never did it. I'm not even sure how you moved it, how you set the Shabbat timer. Why? Because someone who sees me putting in my pan of chicken inside, he thinks I'm cooking on Shabbat, right? So you can't do it. You can do it if you take a metal box and put it inside. So and people see there's a
Being like, looking for their ovens for days of Pesach, where they put an oven
so put like you put a metal box inside, and then people see, okay, it's a different oven. It's not the regular way of cooking, and they know you aren't cooking on Shabbat. When does it come to practice? In the Navy. In the Navy, the kitchens in the boats, at least in the small boats, it's a boat called Dvorah. That's a boat that guards the shores of Israel. So the kitchen there is quite small. There's no room to put a hot plate on Shabbat. There's no room for a hot plate. How do they keep the? How do we warm up food on Shabbat? Oh, dangerous. You have smoked shulon for Shabbat. So the Rabbanut designed for them a metal box that comes inside, fits exactly inside the oven, and they keep the oven on low heat. And then the people who see the second they aren't cooking on Shabbat. That obviously they bring in something cooked because there's this metal box inside. So it's a you can see it. What about returning to the hot plate on Shabbat or putting on a hot plate on Shabbat, taking out from the fridge, taking out cold food from the fridge and putting on the hot plate on Shabbat? So when for sure is it a problem, and we'll discuss it a bit more in depth when we get maybe next week already to the rules of cooking on Shabbat. If it's liquid, okay, if it's liquid, we have a rule that in liquid, and we'll discuss it deeper, there is such a thing of bishul achar bishul. If I take cooked soup, which is now freezing cold, and I warm it up again, so that's the form of the Isur Deoraita, according to the Ashkenazi Psika and the Sephardi Psika, and that's a problem. So there's bishul achar bishul belach, if it's liquid. When I take something out of the fridge and put it on the hot plate, it must be dry. Be'ezrat Hashem, not this week, but next week, we'll discuss what is dry. If I have, what's dry? If I have a bit of sauce on it, if I have, does it have to be schnitzel, which is totally dry, or if I have a tiny bit of sauce on it, Be'ezrat Hashem, that we'll discuss next week, if that's Be'ezrat Hashem. Or on Zoom or in person, I'm not sure. Okay.
Recorded?
Yes, that's correct, yeah. So obviously it first needs to be cooked, it needs to be dry, and the last thing which we mentioned here, it needs to be in a way that it doesn't look like cooking. And here we have an interesting argument, interesting machloket. How do we view a hot plate, a plata? How do we view a plata? Some poskim like Rav Ovadia, I think also Rav Dov Lior, they say, well, no one cooks on a hot plate. That's not, maybe 1 out of a million, but that's not the normal way of cooking on Shabbat. So according to them,
Not just Shabbat.
ever, you never cook on a hot plate. According to them, you can open your fridge, take out the schnitzels, and put it right on the hot plate on Shabbat. Okay? That's according to quite a few poskim. Other poskim hold that you can cook on a hot plate on Shabbat. You can, instead of a slow cooker, people who don't have a slow cooker, they can put something soup in the morning and come in the evening, it will be more or less cooked. Shouldn't. It's true that usually shouldn't we cook a bit before Shabbat, but many people don't put the shouldn't when it's fully cooked. They just continue to cook on Shabbat. So we do some kind of cooking on Shabbat. So it looks like an action of cooking, and we say that we have a problem with actions that look like cooking. So according to those opinions, what do you need to do? As we said, put a net or something in between. Okay, and then some people say you need to put a net is enough, some say 10 is enough, some say you need something which is high, but that's the reason why probably most of us put something in between. My brother, in between the pot and the hot plate. So you put a net and a cooking sheet or something. Yeah. My brother, he holds, like Rav Dov and other poskim, that there's no problem taking out from the fridge and putting it right on the hot plate.
Yeah, liquid,
No, if it's dry,
it's solid.
if it's solid, if it's solid. Okay, so can I ask him to do it for me? That's a question. We'll discuss it at a different time. But if I don't ask him and he understands by himself that it's getting close to the meal and there's no hot food on the plate, he takes it out from the fridge, puts it on the hot plate. No problem, I can eat it. I can eat it, it's no problem. Some poskim will even say, oh, I can even ask him to do it for me on Shabbat, because for him it's permitted. He holds it's permitted. So if you have a friend who's posek like Rav Ovadia Yosef, for example, and he holds you can just take it out from the fridge, you can eat it, there's no problem about it at all. Okay, we'll end with Hashem here and do more to cooking on Shabbat.